Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. I enjoy how easy the meals are to make and the variety to choose from, and of course, how amazing the meals taste. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. You can choose from a variety of new recipes each week, like meatball pizza with fresh mozzarella cheese and charmed tomatoes, or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within a year, so you're never going to get bored. Customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. Blue Apron has several delivery options, so you can choose what fits your needs, and there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe and pre-portioned ingredients and can be prepared in about 40 minutes or less. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so do not wait. That's blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. Blue Apron, it's a better way to cook.
Pennzoil Synthetics with Pure Plus technology makes this the time for performance. Winter is here, but with cold start protection and excellent performance in extreme temperatures, Pennzoil Synthetics keeps your engine purring, so you'll know winter is here isn't as ominous as it sounds. Visit Pennzoil.com and make the switch today.
Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland filling in here on a Monday. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, and all phone guests are on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. By the way, I host the weekend radio show on ESPN Radio. It's called The Morning Roast with Mike Himes and Dominic Foxworth, so you might want to check that out.
Love the plug.
Joining us right now is ESPN NFL insider Louis Riddick, giving you the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. What's up, Louis?
Nothing. Just came back from camp.
Yeah?
Came back from the Patriots.
Saw you up there in New England. How was it?
It's serious up there. It's serious. And y'all seriously better be getting prepared for an offense that's they're coming to get you, man. That football team, it's nice going to camps where you see where it's on display why they're champions like they are. And it's kind of its own self-sustaining machine, man. I mean, Bill just kind of walks around and makes sure that everyone is doing what they need to do, but he's truly now a CEO that can go in there and snatch anybody up by the neck if he wants and say, look, that's not right. But they've got it humming up there. It's nice to see.
With that being said, let's take a big picture look at the NFL right now. Is it the Patriots and then everybody else? Who do you think can be on their level just from a talent standpoint, from an organizational standpoint, as we go into this 2017 season?
Well, I mean, if you switch over to the NFC,
right.
Look, Atlanta's legit.
Yeah.
They're legit. They got a very strong front office, stable ownership, new stadium, franchise quarterback, an offense that returns all the key components. Offensive line is solid. Perimeter playmakers are solid. And then on defense have gotten stronger now. Desmond Trufant comes back. Takk McKinley, if he's healthy, can help out Vic Beasley as far as rushing the passer. Could they have used another pass rusher at the end of that Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Exactly, right? So they got that. They got Dontari Poe. So now you got inside push. So there's a lot of things that are looking nice for that football team to get back to the big game, as long as they don't have that Super Bowl hangover and they don't get hit with a bunch of injuries that just kind of knock them off course. I like where Atlanta's going. They've got a lot of brain power down there that knows how to build football teams, championship football teams. And the AFC moving back over there, Oakland's always the intriguing team to me. All the money invested in the offensive line. Beast Mode should be sitting there going, man, I can't wait to start running the rock now. Derek Carr got paid the way he should get paid. It's the defensive side of the ball that's a little bit scary. Don't have any linebackers, got a great pass rusher. Secondary's a little suspect. But they're going to be there. Kansas City's going to be there. Pittsburgh's going to be there. It's going to be a good year, but look, there's still that gap.
Yeah.
It's still there. I mean, all these teams I just mentioned, there's still that gap. The Patriots just do it different. They just do it different, man.
How much are they going to risk Rob Ninkovich? Because let me explain something to you. I'm not a huge NFL guy. Rob Ninkovich walked into that room. I said, I'd never heard of this guy in my life. I thought Vrabel was still the guy wearing number 50. I'm sort of joking, but I'm not. He looks like if you were setting up a prank and just said, even if this isn't real, you're going to think that there's a guy retiring from the Pats, and that's going to be it, and they all came in. That was him. How much from an actual football standpoint, though, does he mean going away from the middle of that?
You know, it's interesting when you say that. If you go up to New England and you say – that guy, any guy, you said that guy reminds me of Mike Vrabel, that guy would take that as a badge of honor. Because up there, Mike Vrabel is revered because that's the kind of players Bill wants, right? Very interchangeable, high character, locker room guys who everyone respects. And that's exactly what Mike Vrabel was. See all the players that showed up for his press conference yesterday. Dante Hightower is there. Tom Brady is there. I think it was 20-plus guys were in there listening to him talk. What they're going to miss is a guy who's a hybrid player, a crossfit between a 4-3 defensive end and a 3-4 outside linebacker that can play all three downs, cause fumbles, tip passes, interceptions, all those kinds of things that Bill just likes. He's just another cog in the machine that keeps everything rolling up there, and he's a two-time captain up there. Those are the things that Bill has preached ever since he got there in 2001. No, it was 2000. Interchangeable players who are very much so willing to sacrifice some of themselves to give to the greater good, which is the team. And I know that stuff sounds boring a lot to people because we're in an age, right, where it's about me. How's this for me? How can I sell a jersey? How can I get more Twitter followers, more Instagram followers? That's not how it's like. That's not what it's like up there. They love guys like that, and he'll be able to go back to New England anytime he wants and be treated like a king.
Let's jump around to some other camps and just see what's going on. Blake Bortles, go down to Jacksonville. I know you can't judge a lot by the first couple of days. I've been there. I understand that. But there seems to be some concern about Blake Bortles throwing 5 interceptions at a practice. Where do we view him at, and just how big a year is this for Blake Bortles?
Blake is soon going to replace Jay Cutler as the ultimate tease. He's going to get that title from me.
Hot take.
Okay, and I'll tell you why. The guy, when he came out of school, it was all about, look, we can shorten his release, improve his mechanics. Yep. He's got great upside. His ceiling's real high, blah, 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 blah. Floors, ceilings is so high. And people get enamored with ceilings. And that's what people were enamored with him. But see, quarterback play, Booger, you know it. And the great quarterback coaches who I've been around have told me, it's about decision-making and accuracy. And Blake really doesn't have either, especially in crunch time, especially when he has to have it. He can put up some garbage junk numbers in the fourth quarter when teams are playing soft cover 2 and you're just rushing 4 and trying to, basically just massage the clock. But when the chips are on the line and it's all in, he's doing now what he's going to do in the regular season because he's done it before. So if he's right now in the early parts of training camp turning the ball over to the other side of to the defense, what's he going to do when it's real live bullets? What's he going to do?
I would go back and say 2 years ago he played pretty well, though. And I think that's something, especially with the receiving core he's got now. You look at what they're doing with Tom Coughlin there. You bring in Leonard Fournette. So you're trying to build a running game to take some of the pressure off of him. The factors you mentioned, is there something they can help him with in training camp? Accuracy, timing, decision-making. Is that something – because the season's still 6 weeks away. Can they help him with that?
Well, sure. And I think the thing that helps him with it are the things you just mentioned, which is really a strong running game to where you can dictate a little bit more to the defense as to how they're going to call their game because they're trying to slow down the run game. So that means a lot more 8-man fronts, a lot more single covers on the outside and the middle of the field safety. Now, with that, the decision-making part becomes much easier.
Yes.
The accuracy part – we'll see, because it's good when you're warming up and you're doing 7-on-7. You look pretty out there. Your feet are in line. You're getting your front shoulder pointed to where the ball needs to go, and you're firing it in there nice. But when people are rushing you, when there's people like you coming after you, and there's a lot of fans around, and you just got sacked on first down, now it's 2nd and long, and now you have to, muscle memory comes into play. Do you resort back to what you were? And some players, no matter how they're coached, Booger, they just become who they are. Yeah. I'm afraid that that's what he is.
We're talking with ESPN NFL insider Louis Riddick, and, he's a quarterback. Looks like they might be able to use a backup back there in Jaguarsville, which means we got to talk about, obviously, what's going on in Baltimore. The owner of the team came out and discussed what he thought he was going to do. He said that they had talked to Ray Lewis. They've been discussing this down the line in their franchise. If you're in the front office right now, what is your mindset, specifically if you've got a situation like the one the Ravens do with an injured quarterback who knows that not only could this guy come in and be an issue in terms of everything else, but he probably might be able to take his job if things don't go super well.
Yeah, I mean, this issue, it is what it is. Every individual team has a tolerance level for things off of the football field that's different. They just are. What on the football field, look, if you look at Colin's numbers, yards per attempt, career passer rating, are better than Joe Flacco's. They're better. Now, people could say, well, those are just very generic stats, but look, passer rating's a pretty good stat. If you want to compare people over their careers. And Colin is a better football player right now than someone else who they're talking about bringing in to take a look at being RG3.
Yeah.
RG3 last year was awful. He didn't really deserve a workout. Colin deserves a look. When we get to this point, though, why is Steve Bisciotti doing the things he's doing as far as polling all these different people and getting all these? Because this is a very, 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 very sensitive issue. And Booger, I heard you say it early this morning. People are scared about this. Mm-hmm. They don't really know what to do about it because these guys are running businesses. They're getting pushback from certain parts of their fan base, and they're going, look, in the end, this is a business for us, and we vet all kinds of issues when it comes to players. We have to vet this issue, too. How's this going to affect our business? Ray? Look, it's probably a smart move on their part. Who's more connected to that city from an athletic standpoint than Ray Lewis? He knows what the people are thinking down there. He knows if this will be accepted. He knows if this will be something that negatively affects the organization, probably better than the owners themselves know, because he's in the community. He knows what's going on down there. What would I do? Look, there's a lot of things to consider for these football teams. I mean, the things that John Mara talked about in New York, I mean, that stuff's real. I mean, if they're getting the letters and they're getting the pushback from people in the fan base, well, I don't think he's lying about it. Now, how they handle it going forward, what's more important to them? Look, that's going to be up to the individual 32 teams how they handle it. Would I give Colin Kaepernick a chance? Yes, I would. I would have brought him in at this point. I would really want, and for me, I think at this point it'd be about, look, Colin, we respect what you've done and how much you're still trying to do. Obviously, do you really? How important is football to you? How committed are you to helping us in a role that's much different than what you're used to? Mm-hmm. And are you willing to be in it for the long haul and really do what's best for this football team? And if I feel as though our organization is strong enough and I'm comfortable enough with his answers, then I'm moving forward with it.
You know, Lewis, to your point. I think organizations are kind of fall into different categories around the NFL. There are the owners that are not even going to mention his name. GM's head coach is not going to say his name. There are some who, and this is where I want your perspective, who don't know what to do or how to feel. And just like you talked about, we're going to get in the room. And what I want to know is when you guys have an indifferent feeling like most have about Colin Kaepernick, do you talk to each other? Because the big word around the NFL, blackballing, colluding, as if everybody's gotten together in a room saying we're not going to sign him. I don't think that's going on at all. What I do think is going on, there are a group of people, what number it is, I don't know. They're getting together and they're saying, okay, are you guys talking about it? How would you guys handle this situation? Is that something from your expertise that would go on in an NFL front office, not about this situation, but when there is a contentious social situation in the NFL, do you guys talk to other teams and see how they would handle it and what they would think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Teams talk to other teams. I mean, these guys are your friends. These are guys who are people you have to do business with. These are the guys who you're making trades with, who you're trying to get information from. Look, when a player goes on the waiver wire or a player gets cut, how do you think you're finding out information about these guys before you bring them into your team or before you put in a waiver claim or you bring them in to work them out? Guys get on the phone and they call their buddies, the pro director at the other team, the college scouting director, the personnel director, the player programs guy, and go, tell us about this.
What's up with your boy?
That's right. Because maybe you worked with that guy before. Maybe you went to school with him. Maybe you had beers with him at the combine. I mean, they're all still people. Although they're working in front offices, they're still people. They're still friends. They're still colleagues. Whatever the level of your relationship is, of course they talk about it. You can't say that no other team has talked to another. One team hasn't talked to another team and said, hey, how are y'all feeling about Colin? How do you think your city would handle it? Your fan base would handle it? Your building would handle it? Your locker room would handle it? Of course they talk about it. And right now, overwhelming majority, obviously, right now, are not comfortable with it. Yeah. Now, are they? Otherwise, he'd have at least gotten a workout. Seattle, that's it? That's the only team that thought he was worth bringing in for a workout? Come on.
I thought it was a step forward, the fact that Bisciotti and Mara at least would stand up and talk about the perception. Even if the signing wasn't imminent, they would at least stand up, bring his name up, speak his name, talk about him. Yeah. And even if their fan base was against it, the fact that they did that let me know that they were one of those, which I already knew, one of the pillar organizations. When you talk about the Patriots, talk about the Ravens, talk the Packers, the Giants, those organizations that are strong enough to do the right football thing regardless of the impact socially.
Well, I'll tell you what. For them to not want to talk about it, considering the fact that the types of players that have been allowed to play in the National Football League that have some of the track records that they do, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say there must be some serious, serious pushback that they're receiving from this. It must be serious for them to not really, to almost like say, hey, look, you know what? yeah, we've gotten some letters, or, man, you know what? Yeah, he's a guy who's under consideration. Yeah, and want to just change the subject quick.
Yeah.
Right.
There must be some serious pushback from some serious people that are making them go, whoa, this is different. Otherwise, we all know the NFL is about winning, and we know that Colin's better than other players out there. So why isn't he getting looks?
Yeah.
Well,
something's going on.
To that point, Lewis, and before we switch gears and go somewhere else, is how much do you think the actual location of Baltimore plays a part in this? Because what we've seen in this country from a police brutality standpoint and from the very specific things that Colin Kaepernick has brought up in terms of what he is protesting, Baltimore is very much ground zero for a lot of this. How much do you think that affects this decision from a Ravens organization standpoint?
I think it's a big part of it. I think it's something that they're very cognizant of, and they're very much so going, okay, how will the law enforcement component of our city react to him being here? I think that's why you need people who have boots on the ground in that city. They need to find out, look, how would this be perceived? I believe that the Ravens know from a football perspective. Look, I mean, him and Ryan Mallett, come on now. I mean, we know.
What are we talking about?
I mean, we know what we're talking. We know what's going on. They're just trying to figure out just what does this mean for us? What are all the different things that we know we may be forced to deal with, and what are the things that maybe we just don't even know? Because this is uncharted territory for these teams. You can tell, Booger, look, you put it perfectly. People just don't know in the National Football League really how to deal with this. And usually when you don't know and there's uncertainty, you don't go. You just don't do it. Right. You just ignore it and go move on to the next one. That's why all these other jokesters are getting workouts and being considered for the quarterback position, and he's not. Because this is obviously something that they're just not quite able to get their arms around as to what it's going to mean for their football team.
Switching gears, let's go out to Oxnard, California. Zeke Elliott. While he's done a lot of things that have been dumb and immature, in my opinion, the fact that this investigation has dragged on over a year, to me, is unfair to him. Mm-hmm. And when we're talking about domestic violence, my direct question is this. Why are we talking 1 to 2 game suspension when the NFL policy talked about 6 games with Zeke Elliott, number one? And why is it taking so long for the NFL to come out, even though, because Jerry just said that the NFL and Zeke have met in the last month and then they're just waiting on the answers. Why is this taking so long, and why are we at this point with a 1 or 2 game suspension?
This is a great question. We'd like to know what the evidence really is. What does the NFL really have on them? What can they prove? What can they circumstantially prove? What exactly is the situation here? Because if you listen to it from Jerry Jones' standpoint, he says, look, I see nothing here that really, in his mind, would lead to a significant suspension.
Correct.
He just doesn't see anything,
right.
And we don't know what the NFL knows. We don't really know what they're going to base their decision ultimately on. And this kind of thing, the longer it draws out, that usually means that maybe they don't have. I don't know. I don't know why this part of the disciplinary policy, as far as the NFL is concerned, is always something that is very gray. It's this whole issue, the domestic violence issue, has been something that they have fumbled and bumbled around for years now, and they're doing it again with this. We'll see what happens.
Lewis, let me ask you, though, in that regard, though, Jerry Jones not considering something to be wrong is not any sort of gold standard in terms of behavior in this league. But to that point, is there some level of special treatment that a player gets being under Jones if you're a league that's certainly not going to tell Jerry Jones that he can't be out here in party buses with league referees, right, and then at the same time tell him one of his players is doing something wrong as well? Is there a different standard because of the personal behavior of that owner?
Maybe. Look, relationships make the world go round, okay? And you know that there are certain owners who are probably much more tight with the league office than others. Jerry Jones is big. Jerry Jones is powerful. Jerry Jones has a lot of influence. I don't know how those relationships are going at the highest level. I don't know how those decisions are being made. But to say that there's not the potential for preferential treatment across organizations, I think would just be putting your head in the sand.
Let's look at the Cowboys on the field. A lot is expected of this team. Dak Prescott, the offensive line, is the best offensive line in the business. I said last year that the Cowboys' biggest fall, and it would show its ugly head at some point, would be their lack of playmaking ability on defense. Mm-hmm. Go to the Green Bay game. It showed itself in that game. I don't see anything changed. I know Jalen Smith's trying to come out and be an impact player. Can the Cowboys' defense, currently as constructed, be a Super Bowl winning defense?
No, not in and of itself. No, they need the whole complementary angle of the game to be working in their favor like it did last year, which means you better have Ezekiel Elliott on the football field. The running game better be strong. The time of possession battle better be won by your football team, because they don't have the horses to say, we're going to rush 4, cover with 7. We've got some guys who can close out games a la Von Miller types, Khalil Mack types. A lot of uncertainty at the second level at linebacker. Jalen Smith, a lot of things are being pinned on Jalen Smith as far as being able to elevate this defense that I think are unfair. We don't even know how the kid would be able to.
What does he look like?
We
so
don't
far,
know.
By the way?
You know what? From some of the clips that I've seen, he looks fantastic. But we don't look. It's a long season.
Yeah.
A lot of practice time, a lot of hits, a lot of things that he just hasn't been exposed to yet since coming off the injury. And in the secondary, it's totally turned over. Really, the only guy who you know back there who you can count on right now is Byron Jones. Everybody else is new. They haven't gotten better on that side of the ball, and they could potentially be missing for a game or two, or however long this is going to ultimately be, or none, the best player on offense. A lot of uncertainty in Dallas.
Last thing I'll ask you, staying in that division, where do you think this situation with Odell Beckham Jr. is going in New York? I mean, look, I realize that it's a reasonable discussion to have in terms of who should be paid what, but when you're just coming into camp, I don't want to throw around the word distraction because, like I've said before, I don't necessarily believe that all distractions are actually distractions in the NFL. But how much do you think that the discussion around OBJ is affecting that camp?
I don't know if it's affecting the camp. I mean, I can't really say how much it's really affecting. Look, when you're in training camp right now, I mean, it's something that you hear. But look, training camp, man, is about, for a lot of guys, just trying to make a team and survive to the next practice and making sure that your feet aren't too sore and you're getting the kind of rest that you need and you're learning your playbook. I don't think that stuff's really a distraction. OBJ's situation right now is really about this. It's about comfort level for the Giants as far as, look, if we go ahead and we put all our chips in and we pay this guy what we know he really is worth on the open market, what are we going to get? What's that going to mean? Are all the things that he has done and all the things, the kind of attention that he's brought to this football team, is this going to be magnified times 100? Or is he going to become, we're not saying he needs to become the choir boy type of leader here, but is he going to just go off on us? I'm telling you, those are the kind of decisions, those are the kind of discussions that you have when you're trying to decide about a player. Those are real discussions that they need to have. Because he's already, look, right now, as he's been ascending in the NFL, he's done some stuff that makes you go, man, can you just tone it down just a little? So we have to stop talking about you in the way we're talking about you. They know they're going to pay it, and they're going to pay it.
Right.
I'm telling you, the discussion that they're having, though, is what does this mean? How is it going to change him? How is it going to affect him once he gets what is going to be a mega, mega contract?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a huge deal. Before we let you go, I'm curious. You ever been to a baseball game?
Yeah.
When you go to a baseball game, what do you do at the baseball game?
Watch it.
That's kind of what I do. I mean, it's like, see, that's kind of what I do.
Go get a hot dog. I know. Some of us are of a higher level of sophistication.
What were you saying that you do?
I score games.
Oh, do you really?
Yes.
He scores games.
Notice the wonderment with which he looked upon.
Well, I'm just saying. Because is there something?
Is
there something I'm missing?
No. He goes to the baseball game. He, me, and Clinton Yates, and he will score the baseball game sitting in his seat. I've never met anybody who did that besides somebody who was working in the press box.
Why do you? Is it become the game?
First of all, there's a sort of a casual elegance to it that I enjoy.
There's nothing elegant about that.
There's something to be said about
casual elegance.
There's something to be said about the progress you make as you go through it. And I'm just a big baseball fan. It's just, to me, it's a ritualistic kind of thing that's been fun.
He's bored.
Hashtag kids dig the scorecard.
Join
the club.
That's what. You just go get a hot dog and a Coke.
I'm not that guy. I actually like the game.
Let me tell you. I'll tell you what. You know what I like most about baseball, about live baseball? I love the duel between pitcher, hitter, and how much different it looks in person than on TV. You can't get a feel. That ball is humming.
It is.
And when you hear it hit the catcher's mitt, I mean, it's like, pow! I mean, I'm going, that's the kind of, I mean, I actually sit there and I'm fascinated just by the sport itself. I don't need to score it.
Do you bring a gun so you can see how fast they're throwing?
A radar.
No, but I might. Let's
be clear.
You bring a gun.
Three brothers up here on stage. Got to know what we're talking about. He's Louis Riddick. He's an ESPN NFL insider. Thanks for joining us, man.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at lq.com.
Mike and Mike, Clint Yates, Bomani Jones. He's joining us next. Booger McFarland is here with us right now. We're presented by Progressive Insurance.
You have more hair than Bomani.
I do have a little bit more hair.
Bomani came on home a long time ago. He came on home to the...
I'm not going to dog anybody's hair because we all know we're all trying to keep it for...
I'm not dogging him.
I know. I'm just saying we're all trying to keep it for as long as we can. So
sometimes you got to come on home.
That's pretty much how that works. Quickly, at Mike and Mike, my dad did the scorecard and stats for all our Little League games all the way to high school because he loves the game. Exactly.
It's because you're bored.
It's like because I enjoy. It's not boring.
This is something that is totally new to me. Somebody will go to a baseball game to watch the game, but you will pull out a scorecard and chart the game. That's a 4-6-3 double play. That's a fielder's choice. Why not watch the game? Get a hot dog. Watch the sausage races.
Just documentation of what you've seen and what you've been.
ESPN does that for you on the app. You know that, right?
Get a good game. It's better than a ticket as a memento. Joining us right now, Bomani Jones of The Right Time. He joins us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Bo, you ever scored a game with you at live?
Yeah, he's always scored the games. Whenever we went when I was a kid, I'd always score the games.
See, that's as a kid, though, Bo. But as a grown man, if you go to a baseball game, say in the last 10 years, are you scoring the game?
At this point, probably not, but I'm not into baseball like I was in that time. Like Bob Ryan says, every game he goes to, he fills out the scorecard.
Thank you, Bob Ryan. The quintessential American sports writer. Yeah. I am totally vindicated in this, and I'm so much happier now that we brought this up. Thank you, Bomani.
Although I would like to note, though, that if you're using Bob Ryan as your arbiter of whether or not what you're doing is cool, you might be hustling backwards.
It's not an arbiter of cool. It is not an arbiter of cool. It is a justification of tradition. Bomani, all right, look, it's summer wedding season. Steph Curry got, he's on videotape doing all this other stuff in terms of imitating LeBron James. Kyrie is there laughing along with the joke. What did you think about this video when you first saw it, Bo?
I mean, my first thought was there's certainly an irony in that corner of the room, like mocking somebody for not being cool. That was my immediate thought. It's like, oh, really? You with the air registered nurse shoes are going to be the one knocking somebody else for not being cool? We'd have to admit there's an irony there. I don't know if they knew they were on camera. Like, I don't know what exactly it was. But, hey, man, these dudes are petty. Like, that's the moral of the story is these dudes are petty. Kyrie is petty. Steph is pettier than he gets credit for being. They just some petty dudes. It's funny. But, I mean, I know we about to make a thing of it because we ain't got nothing else to talk about, but it's just petty.
But, man, I think the biggest issue is not the fact that they were making fun of LeBron at the wedding because that happens all the time. I think the bigger issue is still Kyrie and him being disgruntled and wanting to get out of Cleveland. So I'll ask you, with everything that's gone on, with everything that we know now, do you think there's any way that he can come back and play for the Cavaliers? Because I still do.
Nah, that horse been done left the barn. I mean, like, in theory, I suppose maybe it was possible, and I've had people who said that David Griffin was probably the guy that could figure out how to make the team. I don't really have a great answer on whether that's the case, but I do feel like right now, too much is out here at this point for him to be able to come back. So, like, for Kyrie, if this is in part that I want to be the man and I feel like I'm stuck in LeBron's shadow, there's no walking back from that because you're still going to be in his shadow if you stay there. So, no, I mean, I think it's a wrap on that one. I don't know if it's the best for the Cavs. I don't know if it's the best for Kyrie, but it's over.
Bomani Jones, host of The Right Time on ESPN Radio, 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland filling in here on Mike and Mike. Bo, let me ask you, sticking with basketball, I've said this before. I like LeVar Ball, the dad. I like LeVar Ball, the CEO. I like LeVar Ball, the hype man for his son. I don't like LeVar Ball, the basketball coach. What did you think of what happened this weekend at the AAU tournament and him getting that referee thrown out of the situation?
I mean, he seems to be pretty clearly and transparently a sexist in a way that's problematic once it starts getting anywhere near these games or the business that he is in. You know, like, I'm sure somebody hit me up and tell me how much he loves his wife and all this stuff like that. That's cool. But the first time he did the stay in your lane thing, I thought that the woman from Fox, was it Christine Leahy? I thought she was out. I didn't like the way she handled it, but the way he came back on the other side seemed to indicate a certain level of intolerance, or basically what he would probably term as some level of back talk with women.
Right.
The same thing seemed to happen in this game, in this AAU tournament. And then I was glad to see the refs make a call like, nah, man, we're not going to put up with this. But Gary Parrish at CBS wrote a very good column that makes a big point that I do think has to be noted. Adidas really, really, really went out like a bunch of suckers when they capitulated to his desire to have that official taken out of the game. Like, they did not have to do that. Now, maybe it's because they're still trying to swing something with Lonzo Ball, because keep in mind, the Big Baller team is not sponsored by a shoe company, which makes them a bit anomalous on the high levels of AAU basketball. For Adidas to be like, okay, no, we'll go ahead and we'll put this woman out of the tournament, LeVar, to make you happy. That's shameful. Like, that's indefensible, and that's shame.
Another interesting issue that happened this weekend is the Ravens owner, Steve Bisciotti, came out and he asked the people that they pray for his team as they continue to decide what to do with Colin Kaepernick. Now that's a thought in and upon itself, but I would love to get your opinion on A, Colin Kaepernick, as if we haven't heard that take already, but B, more importantly, how do you think that Steve Bisciotti is trying to decide whether or not they want to bring Kaepernick internally? Because he's been one of the few owners that would actually come out and say the man's name and talk about him being an option in his organization.
Yeah, but you know what, though? I think the moral of the story with this one is, when you are a man who seems to be of little to no principle, it becomes very, very difficult for you to handle a situation like that and discuss it publicly. And the reason I feel comfortable saying that about Bisciotti, a man I do not know, is we saw how it went with the Ray Rice situation, right? Like, we saw how they wound up playing that, and they were just kind of rolling around with the two games at first. Then the video came out, and then they released them, and they want to act all big and bad on a matter of principle. On this one, this dude says, well, we're going to listen to fans, and then we're going to listen to sponsors, and then we want somebody to pray for us. Stand for something, man. Either stand for we're not going for what Kaepernick is doing, or stand for we don't have a problem with what he said. Now, I get that in Baltimore, it's probably a little bit more complex than it is in some places, because their issues with police brutality have been a bit more front and center and have been a bit of national news, and they don't quite know how to deal with that. Okay, I get it, but don't do all of this. Like, the people who work in the Ravens PR department, I really don't understand how any of them still have jobs. Like, remember the disaster of the Ray Rice press conference and how that went. And then you look at this one where you let this dude get in front of people and say, so pray for us. Why don't you pray for the dude that doesn't have no job instead of the billionaire that can't seem to find any level of temerity in one direction or another to make a decision? Because I'd call him out if he made the decision that says we're absolutely not taking Kaepernick for this, because I think that would be problematic. But at least you'll be doing something, as opposed to this where we're just going to see what the money and you guys think, and that way we won't actually have to make our decision ourselves, and we can just pass it off on everybody else. Weak.
He's Bomani Jones. He's the host of The Right Time with Bomani Jones on ESPN Radio. Thanks, Bo.
Bye now.
Appreciate it.
I told you, he agrees with me. You got to do something. This decision didn't need to go much further than the owner, the coach, and the GM.
Yes, but sometimes
I get what they're doing, but
sometimes you gotta pacify people, man.
Yeah.
Listen, are you married?
No.
Okay, I'm married.
Okay.
All right.
We discussed this at your wedding, the salsa. Yeah.
My wife is probably listening right now, so at the threat of probably making her upset, I'm going to say it this way. Sometimes you have to pacify people in life. Fans, spouses, like, even though you know what you're going to do or the decision that you may make, but you have to let people act like they have an input. Make them think that they're part of the decision.
I think Bo's right, though. I think that in this particular case, it was a matter of either incompetence or cowardice that led them to that, as opposed to, really trying to hear everybody's
Maybe he already knows what he wants to do. And he's already made up in his mind, if Joe Flacco is going to be out 4 to 5 weeks, we're bringing in Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, because they need him.
Right. So
Which is why you don't need to do all this other foolishness, Booker. That's what I'm saying.
But you do the foolishness because it makes the fans, the sponsors, feel needed, feel like they're part of the decision. At least he conversed with us and talked to us about what was happening. He didn't just say, you know what, here's what I'm doing, take it or leave it. Sometimes you got to do that, Yates. If you ever get married, remember,
I hear you.
You got to pacify the spouse every now and then.
But the next time that an NFL franchise just starts taking random fan feedback about major personnel decisions, Daniel M. Snyder, holla at me. I'm just saying.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests are on the show. Pennzoil Performance Line. Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland, filling in here on a Monday. Going to your side of the ball, as we like to say. Football. College football. Nick Saban's got himself in a little bit of a spot here. One of his boys seems to have been arrested on a DUI charge. And normally, this wouldn't be a big deal because you start off with a cupcake.
Right.
A little different this time around, Booger.
Well, it's definitely a little different. A lot of factors at play here. Nick Saban has been down this road before. He's had players arrested. We go back just to the last couple of years with Cam Robinson, who star left tackle, got drafted by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Tim Williams, star outside linebacker, had a handgun on campus. And now you got Deshaun Hand. And everybody's always been very critical of what Nick Saban has done. Nick Saban, though, has always taken the path that I'm not going to do what the media wants me to do. I'm going to do what I think is best for the kid. Well, often what happens is, perceptionally, we think what's best for the kid is best for Alabama.
It's best for Nick. Yeah.
Meaning the kid is on the field playing. Nick Saban has the kid, and the kid is helping Nick Saban win football games. And I think in this situation, there's going to be a lot of public outcry for Nick Saban to suspend this guy. And I honestly think whether you like what Nick does or not, I think Nick takes the same approach every time. So the consistency is there. For me, that's all I ask for, is Nick never makes knee-jerk reactions. He's always going to say, you know what, let's gather all the facts, gather all the information, then I'll make a decision, and I'll punish him accordingly in-house. I'm not going to punish him that way you're happy or ESPN's happy or any other affiliate's happy. I'm going to punish him according to what I see fit. And Nick Saban is the godfather of college football. It might be he's one of the top 5 coaches in any sport of all time.
Absolutely.
And so I think he's garnered the respect and he deserves the right to be able to do this. Should the guy get suspended? I don't know all the details. I don't know all the facts. I just know there's going to be a big public outcry when it comes to this about Nick Saban and how he handles this, especially since they opened with Florida State, which I think is one of their most losable games they've had in a long, long time.
Deshaun Hand has 7 career sacks. It's the most among Alabama's returning defensive linemen. Let's hear what Paul Feinbaum had to say about Saban and his decision-making on SportsCenter.
Driving under the influence, come on. We all know the dangers of that, and I'm not going to stand here or sit here on some pedestal. But this close to training camp, this close to the beginning of the season, I think this ought to be an automatic one-game suspension at the minimum. Instead, we'll listen to Nick Saban nuance his words and work on internal issues and let the player help set the template. I don't buy any of that. I think he ought to be gone, at least for the Florida State game, and that's only the biggest game of the season for Alabama.
Well, here's the thing I'll say. I get there's a big difference. Driving under the influence as opposed to handgun, marijuana in the car? I mean, neither one of those are good.
Right. And I don't really know what the 50-50 is there also on what the timing on the season matters either. If you're going to say that DUIs are so bad, I'm not understanding what the point of camp matters at that point either. I mean, look, if the morality lies on the side of what you're actually doing, right, not what worse you could have done poorly, that doesn't seem to make sense from a timing standpoint.
I think what Paul was trying to say with camp being so close and you're supposed to be focusing, getting ready for the season, so close, put all the horseplay behind, I think that's why he referenced the time standpoint. But Nick is going to get a lot of scrutiny because of this. Do I think he'll get suspended? No. I think he will be out there at the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta when Alabama takes on Florida State, and he will get a lot of criticism from that. But the one thing Nick Saban always tells me, anytime I talk to him publicly or privately, he says, if a kid does something, we can throw him away, but what good does it do for the kid? What good does it do? And when I go to these parents' home and I sit in their living rooms, I tell their moms, their dad, their guardian, I'm going to look after your son and he'll be a better man. Well, how are we teaching him to be a better man if the moment he does something, we send him away? How are we teaching him to be a better football player if the moment he does something, we send him away? That's why I honestly don't think he's going to get suspended. And I think Nick will run him. He'll do all kind of internal things. But when it comes to taking this guy off the field, and it's the same thing in the NFL. The NFL is going through this quandary right now. How do you deal with kids that smoke marijuana? Mm-hmm. Do you send them away where they can go back to that same environment where they were smoking marijuana constantly in, or do you keep them in the facility? Because sometimes when you get suspended, not just marijuana, with performance-enhancing drugs and other things, you can't come around the facility.
There is a delineation, though, when it comes to what people consider to be recreational drugs versus drugs that matter for what your playing career is.
Yeah, but my point being about that, you're right. My point about this is, as it pertains to Nick Saban, when you suspend someone, can they get better when you push them away?
You're right.
Or do they get better when you bring them closer where you can keep an eye on them? That's why I think Hand is going to play. Because I don't think Nick feels like me suspending this kid, sitting him down for a week, is going to teach him a lesson to stop him from drinking and driving. I think the lesson will be taught with some of the things that Nick Saban has him do behind the scenes. That's why I think everybody's going to be in an uproar because, once again, this will be a star player or a player of significance that will not miss any time for getting arrested.
But let's be clear. If it's a different opponent, it's a different decision on making the kid play or not. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance, creators of the Name Your Price tool. Choose from a range of coverage options and pick the price that works for you. Coming up, today is the non-waiver trade deadline in Major League Baseball, and we're going to have Tom Verducci on in the next hour to talk about it. You know what I'm also going to ask him?
Don't ask him if he scores. Don't do that.
Kids dig the scorecard.
No, just you.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient and recipe delivery service in the country. I enjoy how easy the meals are to make and the variety to choose from, and of course, how amazing the meals taste. For less than $10 per person per meal, Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with pre-portioned ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. You can choose from a variety of new recipes each week, like meatball pizza with fresh mozzarella cheese and charmed tomatoes, or let Blue Apron's culinary team surprise you. Recipes are not repeated within a year, so you're never going to get bored. Customize your recipes each week based on your preferences. Blue Apron has several delivery options, so you can choose what fits your needs, and there's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe and pre-portioned ingredients and can be prepared in about 40 minutes or less. Blue Apron's freshness guarantee promises that every ingredient in your delivery arrives ready to cook, or they'll make it right. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. You're going to love how good it feels and tastes to create incredible home-cooked meals with Blue Apron, so do not wait. That's blueapron.com/Mike and Mike. Blue Apron, it's a better way to cook.
Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT, home, safe home.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland filling in here on a Monday. All guests are on the Shell Penzo Performance Line, and we're presented by Progressive Insurance. You can find me on the Morning Roast on ESPN Radio on Sunday mornings, 9 a.m. to noon, with Dominic Foxworth and Mina Kimes. That's what I do when I'm not here.
I like it.
I also write for The Undefeated, so you can check that out as well. And I got a podcast and a blog, and I do a lot of other things. But right now, we're talking, and it is time to go off the top.
Off the top.
I like that drop.
You like
Adrian Beltre of the Rangers became the 31st player in Major League Baseball history with 3,000 career hits. Banged a double in a 10-6 loss to the O's on Sunday. Beltre becomes the first Dominican-born player to reach the benchmark. He joins Ichiro, Rafael Palmeiro, Rod Carew, and Roberto Clemente as the only players born outside the 50 states to reach 3,000 hits, Booger.
Yeah, one of only 3 guys that played primarily third base that get to 3,000 hits. The other 2, George Brett. Oh, man, I'm losing the other guy. I had it up the top of my head right now. George Brett and Wade Boggs.
Yes.
That's the other guy. So the only 3 guys played third base primarily, get to 3,000 hits. So great accomplishment. And what I love, his family was there to see him, his 2 daughters and his son. Unbelievable accomplishment.
We talked to Tim Kirkjian earlier in the program, and he mentioned that even though he's got that scowling look on his face, and a lot of people see him as sort of a tough guy exterior, and they know the whole thing about not touching his hair, he's really quite a fun-loving dude. It's a shame that he's not a bigger star in Major League Baseball. Might want to find a way to fix that if they get another guy of his caliber. Speaking of Major League Baseball,
There you go.
There we go. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is today at 4 p.m. Eastern, but there were 4 notable moves on Sunday, highlighted by the Royals acquiring Melky Cabrera from the White Sox. Cabrera this season has had a career high in hits, homers, and RBI. His career highs were his lone season with Kansas City in 2011. 201 hits, 18 homers, 87 RBI. What do you think about this deal or any others that we're going to talk about?
Well, I think that's a very good deal, but I think the biggest shoe is going to be Sonny Gray. Where is he going to go? And is Billy Beane going to move Sonny Gray? Because he's often said that if I don't get the deal that I want, I'll bring him back. He's a controllable piece. 2 years left, somebody you can build around. He's young, he's cheap. To me, that'll be the biggest domino to fall today. Where does Sonny Gray go by the trade deadline?
Not the normal situation, too, because he's a rental plus, like you mentioned.
Yes.
He's not just a 6 or 7 weeks guy in terms of what you're getting before you get to the playoffs.
Off the top.
There were 5 walk-off hits on Sunday, including 3 of the home run variety by the Blue Jays, A's, and White Sox. Both are the most on a single day this season. The highlight of the bunch was a walk-off double by Kyle Farmer in the 11th inning of the Dodgers' 3-2 win over the Giants. Farmer is the first player in Dodgers history with a walk-off RBI in his first career plate appearance. That's courtesy Elias.
Well, I'm just glad when you have a walk-off, like these guys have learned how to celebrate. One of the things that as a football team, like I've envied, is the baseball walk-off, like the finality, the game's over.
Flip the helmet.
Jump up and down, and nobody gets their tooth knocked out.
That's
to
true.
me, that was the great thing about all the walk-offs yesterday. It's a special feeling. I imagine I've never had something like that happen, like the game end on the final play like that. That's something that had to be amazing because of the so many emotions that happened during that time.
There's no clock in baseball, but you do have that.
Yeah.
Off the top.
The U.S. defeated Brazil 4-3 in its second game of the Tournament of Nations in San Diego yesterday, but it wasn't that simple. The Americans trailed 3-1 but scored 3 goals after the 80th minute to keep their hopes of winning the event alive. Julie Ertz scored the winner in the 89th minute, while Megan Rapinoe's goal in the 85th minute was her first for the national team in more than 2 years. Booger, I watched this game. It was stilted. It was stiff, but they managed to pull it out, and it was a good one, I think, overall for the women's national team program.
Did you score this game while you watched
No,
it?
I did not score this game. Although if you're into that, you can check out a website called Zonal Marking.
Is there a way to score soccer?
Again, zonal marking there are people who do this. I do not go to that level
I'm
with footy.
asking you, since you seem to want to score everything you watch, is there a way to score soccer?
There's a way to chart soccer. Scoring soccer is a little different.
Okay.
Because there are not that many goals. Although there were a lot of goals in this game, but they all came late.
Well, it's amazing to me that when our teams across the country, whether it's soccer, baseball, whatever, when our teams get together and we play as a country, how we all galvanize and come behind that team. We may be split apart the entire rest of the year.
Right.
When we come together and we play for a common cause, whether it's the women, the men, it doesn't matter. That's always an amazing deal.
It looked dicey at first, but as it turns out, the U.S. women have never lost to Brazil on home turf, and they kept that streak alive yesterday.
Off the top.
Lastly, Vikings star cornerback Xavier Rhodes agreed to a contract extension. This is according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Terms of the deal specifically were not disclosed, but Schefter says that Rhodes signed a 6-year extension worth over $78 million. The deal includes $41 million in guaranteed money and will keep Rhodes under contract with Minnesota through 2022.
One of the better young football players in the NFL, a guy Minnesota drafted. They got a lot of talent up there. They've done well. Rick Spielman, tremendous job. But this is what the progression should be for your organization. You should draft well, you should develop, you should sign long term. That's how you build a good organization. That's the sign of a good organization. That's the sign of a good GM department, a good scouting department, and everything going on in there. So great move by the Vikings, and that defense is still going to be nasty again this year, led by Rhodes.
Rhodes becomes the third highest paid cornerback in the league in terms of average annual salary, according to Schefter, trailing only Tremaine Johnson and Josh Norman. Rhodes is 27, and he earned his first trip to the Pro Bowl last season and is considered one of the NFL's most physical and skilled corner covers. That was
Off the Top.
Just want to make a quick aside. I actually was in Minnesota 2 weeks ago, and I got to visit the U.S. Bank Stadium. That is an incredible facility, if I may say so.
What's its shape like? Because it's got a lot of glass.
So I was explaining this to somebody. It sort of looks like, and this is going to sound a little bit weird, but if you were a cartoon villain and you had a layer that needed to, like, open up so that, like, a rocket could shoot out of it,
right.
It's got that kind of a, like, bunker shape. But because half of it is glass, it's a very elegant-looking kind of thing. It's got, like, angular, it looks modern and sophisticated, but the glass manages to keep it warm and cool at the same time. It's technology I don't understand, but it's a very cool place. I've not been to Jerry's World, but this was the nicest NFL stadium I'd ever been in.
Yeah, I think right now Jerry's World would kind of set the standard, or it has been. Now, where these new stadiums, that stadium, the one in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz.
Not been to that one yet, yeah.
Just to see where they go and where they take it to. But over the last 5 or 6 years, even before that, Jerry's World has kind of been the gold standard of new stadiums and where they've been built.
All right, so the Vikings got, new players, new stadium. We'll see what they can do as far as the team is concerned. Speaking of the NFL, we've been talking a lot today about Colin Kaepernick and what's been going on regarding the owner, Steve Bisciotti, and what he said about bringing the team along. Let's hear it. He was speaking at a fan forum this weekend.
It's not racial lines. It's not existing players versus pro players or former players. So I'm kind of gathering. I care about the fan base, but I have to absorb the opinions of the players that have been there. We do want to win games, and I'm not sure right now that he is going to help us do that. We're monitoring Joe. We've talked to Joe about it. We're monitoring Mallett. We're keeping our door open. We talked about RG3, bringing him in for a workout. We're very sensitive to it, and we're monitoring it, and we're still, as Ozzie says, scrimmaging it, and we're trying to figure out what's the right tact, and so pray for us.
Booger, what do you think about how they've discussed this so far as a team and an organization?
Well, I think they're trying to be open and honest. Do I think they know what they want to do internally? Yes. I think they already know. I think the fact that this subject is out in the open, they're having discussions about it, that lets me know they've had discussions behind closed doors about if Joe Flacco cannot be there for 4 or 5 weeks, where do we go? All NFL teams do that. It's called a contingency plan. What are we going to do if? They don't just wake up one morning, oh, he's hurt, now where do we go? They have contingency lists about who's out there on the free agent wire. With that being said, Bisciotti's going to get a lot of criticism because of how he handled the Ray Rice situation, everything that's gone on in Baltimore with Ray Lewis. And on top of that, Baltimore in general is kind of like a mecca when it comes to police violence against some African-American people. And that's essentially what Colin Kaepernick is protesting against.
It's almost one for one
Yes.
in terms of his concerns and what exists on the ground in Baltimore.
So now, with that being said, can Colin Kaepernick play? Yes. Does he deserve to be in football? Yes. Based on his talent and based on the people that are in the NFL and their talent, he deserves to be in the NFL. Do I think he's going to get an opportunity? I think it's going to have to be at a pillar organization. Baltimore, New York, New England, Green Bay, organizations that have been given enough credit and clout in their community that they're going to make the right football decisions. Do I think Steve Bisciotti really wants prayer? Yes, absolutely. We all need that. Do I think Steve Bisciotti is going to look to the fans to be the deciding factor whether or not he brings in Colin Kaepernick? No. But what I think he's trying to do is like a lot of us who are married and like people do around this country. We try to pacify the people that are important to us. His fan base is important to him. His sponsors are important to him. So if I go to a fan forum, let me pacify them by talking to them about this issue. I know what I'm going to do. This is my money. This is my team. I've already told Ozzie, you've been giving my blessing. Now, I may not say that to you guys, but Ozzie Newsome is making football decisions. So I honestly think it was kind of a double-edged sword for him. He took a risk by getting up there, discussing this, because a lot of his brother and the other owners, they wouldn't, not only do they not want to do it, they haven't done it. Okay, Mr. Mara, Mr. Bisciotti, they've openly talked about it, whether it's in a negative light or a positive light. At least they're discussing Colin Kaepernick's name, talking about it, and taking the criticism back. So I give him credit for that. But I also know that there are people in his circle who are honestly going to say, it's probably not a smart idea. Right. And I'm pretty sure he's getting those emails, those phone calls and things of that nature. But it's a very, very touchy situation because I honestly think a lot of people don't know what to do. And the biggest thing about this whole thing, Clinton, is that we're discussing a lot of the football aspects of it. Mm-hmm. The one thing that's not getting the attention is the initial reason why Colin Kaepernick kneeled down.
Right.
Because he just wanted black people to stop getting beat up and killed, and the police officers that did it not having anything done to him. Like, that's the issue that he really wanted. And a lot of people around the country will talk about everything else. We'll talk about afros. Literally his hair. We'll talk about the afros. We'll talk about the flag. We'll talk about the veterans. We will talk about everything else, but we won't talk about that issue. And I think at some point, if I'm Colin Kaepernick, when my football career is said and done, that's the one issue that I hope has gotten a little bit better along this whole ride as we've gone. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Is he being blackballed? Because I don't think he's being blackballed. I don't. But blackball is one of those words that is going to catch a lot of attention. Racist, blackball. No, I don't think he's being blackballed. What I think is it's a situation where a lot of people, mainly the 32 owners, some of them don't want to touch it. Some wouldn't mind touching it, but they don't know how. And you get the ones that are on the forefront, the ones that are the pillars in this league, the ones that have always been successful. They understand what they can do, how they can do it, and if the guy can help their football team, they'll bring him in. Because if Flacco is going to be out 4 or 5 weeks, and my choices are RG3 and Colin Kaepernick, it's not a choice. I'm taking Colin Kaepernick because at least he's proven throwing the football from the pocket, he can be accurate, he can make great decisions. He doesn't do it all the time, but he does it a hell of a lot better than RG3 does. And so I think if those are the two choices in Baltimore, Kaepernick will get a job at some point if that opportunity becomes available.
Mike and Mike is brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Upgrade to shaving with a fresh blade whenever you want for a fraction of the price. Join DollarShaveClub.com today. I think that there's one thing that's being overlooked here regarding Kaepernick potentially coming to Baltimore, which is that everything that has been approached as far as his arrival potentially has always been looked at in terms of a downside or a stopgap measure. It is entirely possible that Colin Kaepernick goes to Baltimore and A, plays tremendously, and B, is tremendously popular. Mm-hmm. This is not outside of the realm of possibility. There are a lot of people that like him. Those people might not look like other people who do not like him. However, that doesn't mean that former group does not exist. Meaning if Kaepernick comes to the Ravens, and let's just say this plays out in this way, and I'm being completely just, projecting here what may or may not go on here. I'm not, gets in a game, let's just say he wins a game. Let's just say all the things that he's done over these last few months, whether it's getting homeless guys suits in order to be able to have job interviews, whether it's supporting things like urban farming, whatever it may be, if he simply becomes involved in the community in a way that is impossible to decry and is obviously positive, and he's really good at football, well, this is a win-win. Right. And I feel like this has not been discussed. It's always been looked at like, are we going to let this boogeyman with an afro come in here and tear up our franchise? It is entirely possible. And I think this is half the reason why Seattle didn't want him in there. That people are going to like him a little more than they might like the guy that's already there. And that's why you see guys like Flacco coming out and saying, sure, I want him to get a spot back in the league. I just don't want it to be here. There's football reasons for that. There's popularity reasons for that. That locker room could use or could want a Colin Kaepernick, regardless of what Ray Lewis might say or think. You never know what the positive side of this is going to be. And if I'm a Ravens fan, that's what I want to hear the owner addressing. Not just, it's not this, it's not that, it's not racial, pray for us. That's one element of it, Booger. But at the same time, you can also just discuss this in terms of what the upside would be. That's what you would normally do with any other person. But because of these specific issues that Kaepernick has around him in other people's eyes, nobody wants to look at it as a potential plus as opposed to just a minus. And that kind of bothers me.
Well, when you look at the job description of a backup, it's, do you have a guy that can come in and that can suffice for 1 to 2 games? Okay? Because your backup is a backup for a reason.
Right.
Okay? There's a reason he's not a starter. Colin Kaepernick fits that bill. He's a guy that he's not only can he win 1 or 2 games, he's proven he can take a team to the Super Bowl if given the right tools around him and coached the right way. You go back and look at the film. Yeah. Look at the tape that he put out there the last time we saw him play. Pretty good tape. Not great tape, but pretty good tape. Tape that warranted an opportunity to play in the National Football League again. To your point, if the talent was the same level that we thought of back when he took the 49ers to the Super Bowl, Colin Kaepernick would have a job. If this were Tom Brady, he'd have a job. If this were Russell Wilson, he'd have a job. The NFL is still all about talent, and the perception is that the talent level of Colin Kaepernick has gone down. Okay? Now, John Harbaugh knows him a lot from Jim Harbaugh. And I thought it was very telling also that John Harbaugh, basically, he put himself out there. He said, I've talked to Colin all summer long. So he basically let his fan base know, listen, I've been thinking about this for a while. Like, this is not something we just thought about. I've been talking to him all summer, and I got to know him when my brother was a coach with the 49ers. So I think the Ravens not only put themselves out, but they let their fans know this is real. The coaches basically vetted him all summer, realizing their backup quarterback situation. Right. So the health situation with Joe Flacco is going to be really the biggest issue. I think Colin Kaepernick brings something to the locker room that most starting quarterbacks don't want, which is a guy behind them that takes something away from them. And I don't think people are talking about this. You want your backup quarterback to be seen and not heard.
Yeah.
But what happens the moment Colin Kaepernick becomes your backup? Regardless of where you are, not only is he seen, we got to hear from him.
Absolutely.
We have to hear from him. And I think that issue right there is something organizations are very leery of also is I don't want the backup quarterback doing press conferences. How did that go over when Tim Tebow had a press conference as a backup quarterback? It doesn't go over well. And so I think it's something also that we have to factor in, the distraction level of a backup quarterback. To your point, from a popularity standpoint, from a talent standpoint, what if he gets in, plays well a couple games?
Yeah.
Now the starter comes back and doesn't play well. Now you got, hey, do you put Colin in? Like, those are things that are factoring in that we're not talking about because all we're focused on is blackball, NFL, owners against Kaepernick. There are a lot of factors in this that really you have to drill down to find out everything.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland filling in here on a Monday. The other guy that made a lot of news this weekend, Booger, was LeVar Ball. LeVar Ball, I've said this, I'll say it again. I like LeVar Ball, the dad. I like LeVar Ball, the personal trainer. I like LeVar Ball, the CEO of Big Baller Brand. I like LeVar Ball, the primary hype man for Lonzo Ball, his son, the number 2 overall draft, who went to the number 2 pick in the NBA draft, who went to the Lakers. I do not like LeVar Ball, the basketball coach, at all. And the behavior that he showed this weekend at an AAU tournament in Las Vegas, in which he basically berated a ref and got her thrown out of a tournament at the behest of Adidas, I thought was foul. I thought it was out of line. And I think that if LeVar Ball is going to want to continue to sort of play both sides of the relevancy but not serious line, he's going to have to figure out what he's going to do as far as comporting himself on the court, because what I saw there was shameful.
How do you separate it, though? Because a lot of people say what you just said. I've even said it. Okay, as a guy whose dad wasn't around, I would have loved my dad to be around when I was growing up playing sports and being there and advocating for me, but you can't separate them. It's the same guy. Okay, so are you going to take the good with the bad? Because I think right now we're at a point with LeVar Ball where he's becoming the story and it's becoming a joke and it's becoming a distraction. Lonzo has came to the Summer League, put on a show, left with his MVP, and now Magic is getting ready to build an organization around Lonzo.
Right.
LeVar is still doing and even adding to the things that he's done with a lot more antics. What he did to the female referee, who's regarded by many as one of the best.
She's a D1 ref.
She's one of the best referees out there. What he did to her, insulting her intelligence, insulting her conditioning, is something that shouldn't be done. And I think if I'm Lonzo, at some point, because we always said, this reflects well on Lonzo because his dad is there and his dad is advocating for him. And you can always tell how he feels when his dad's around because he doesn't get bothered. Like, he's seen this all his life. At some point, if you're Lonzo, though, doesn't it start to affect in a negative aspect toward you?
Perhaps.
Like him disrespecting women, him making sexist remarks.
It's
like,
not a
this
good
is what
look.
LeVar's doing. It's not a good look. And so he's killing some of the credit that he earned by being a good dad and being there for his kids. But now he's out here being a sexist toward women. To me, that's something that he cannot do, and he's becoming a sideshow.
I agree, and I think that ultimately is where it's going to change if LeVar is actually going to make any changes. He's going to realize that, hey, the goal wasn't just getting Lonzo to the Lakers. If the goal is to get all three of your boys into the NBA, or at least through whatever college careers they're going to have and have them play pro ball, whether it be in the NBA or be internationally, this ain't going to fly. It's not like just because Lonzo left the nest, people stop paying attention. And that's what my point is. If what he said he wants to do is what he's actually going to do, he's got to figure out a way to bridge this gap because we got 5 more years of this. My man LaMelo is in high school. Right. This ain't going away anytime soon. It's not like all of a sudden he's not gonna have to talk to people. He's going to have to work his magic, so to speak, for each of his sons separately. And if this continues this way, it's not going to work. People are going to stop paying attention, stop letting him through the door.
Do you think he's still doing this to keep it up? Because if he would have stopped the moment Lonzo got drafted, what would we be saying? Oh, look at him. He did this just for the show, just to get his kid drafted. So do you think he's doing this now just to keep it up so we won't say that?
I don't think that this is part of that, was what I'm saying. I think that's the problem with his overall approach, is that when he coaches basketball, there's a different side of his personality that comes out that is not the showman, that is not the seller, that is not the trainer, that is not the dad. Although they are all encompassed in the same person, when he is very specifically leading his kids on the court, he's obnoxious.
Yeah.
You know, and that's one thing if you're getting paid to coach other dudes that are making millions of dollars. But this is overall, the juice ain't worth the squeeze on this one. It might be time for him to step away from actually being a basketball coach because it's taken away from all the other things he wants to do, not just for himself, but for his family and all those kids he's trying to help on that team. This was embarrassing and it was awful. And if you find yourself as Adidas allowing that kind of behavior at your tournaments, I don't know, man. I don't know that that's worth it just to sign a kid who's going to be playing for the Lakers for that long. Not a very good look at all. Did enjoy it, didn't love it.
Home isn't just a place. It's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance. So you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Well, Greeny, we're halfway through another baseball season, and we're really seeing some players who stand out as winners.
Kind of like business travelers who win at business by staying at La Quinta Inns and Suites.
That's because you can put your La Quinta Returns loyalty points to work on the spot with instant free nights.
Just drive up with no reservation and instantly redeem points for a free night that same night simply by using the La Quinta app.
It's like hitting a grand slam.
With an app instead of a bat.
Well played.
Prepare to win at business by learning more about instant free nights and check out the summer rates at LQ.com.
Mike and Mike, ESPN Radio, ESPN2, Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland, filling in here on a Monday. Joining us right now is Tom Verducci, MLB Network insider. Tom, obviously we were in Cooperstown this weekend. So many great moments, but I want to stick with Adrian Beltre first. How would you put his career into perspective, not just as a third baseman, but as a Dominican guy who played in the era that he played in?
Well, listen, it seems like Hall of Famers we can see coming a mile away, right? They usually hit the ground running, 19, 20 years old. He kind of snuck up on us. He's a rare Hall of Famer whose career actually has been better in his 30s than he was in his 20s. You don't find a lot of those guys out there. That's a credit to the way he just stays in shape. Loves the game. That's the thing that sticks out for me, guys. You watch this guy play the game on the field, in the dugout. He's having a ton of fun, and whether he's first year in the big leagues or now 18, 19 years, I love watching the guy play.
Tom, where do you rank him as far as your rankings at third base all time? We had Tim Kirchin on earlier, and he had him about 7th all time. Where do you put Adrian Beltre at?
Yeah, I'd have him in that second tier. I mean, it's tough for anybody to dislodge Mike Schmidt because of the power numbers. But also factor in the defense there at third base by Beltre. I'm not saying he's Brooks Robinson, but, he's in that top handful for being really good defenders at that position. So the whole package to me, and especially in the modern era, it's the best. As you guys probably know, the third base is probably a little bit underrated or underserved in the Hall of Fame. But, yeah, I think having him in that 5 to 10 area, that second tier of third baseman, I have no problem with that.
Tom Verducci joins us, MLB Network insider. He's fueled by Valero, top-tier certified quality fuel from Valero. Keeps engines running cleaner, better, and longer. I got to ask you, though, Tom, we talked about this earlier in the show. To me, Beltre should be a superstar in this league. I realize that he's not exactly the most outgoing person as far as the media is concerned, but for me, Major League Baseball's dwindling, whatever, numbers, popularity, whatever you want to call it, this guy's a prime example of the type of person who probably should be way more popular, but if he walked down the street in half the cities that he played in, nobody would know who he is.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? He does have a great personality, too. What I talked about with his joy on the field, he's like that 100% of the time. Yeah, baseball is a little bit different. I mean, it's such a strong regional sport that, to me, to be a real, true superstar, I'm talking about a national profile, you actually have to get to the World Series and probably win it. And we're at a point now where some of the best players in the game, the Mike Trouts, the Bryce Harpers, Clayton Kershaw, throw Beltre in there, he's been to the World Series, hasn't won it. To me, you have to almost get there like Posey and Ortiz and Jeter all those years. There's something about baseball where you need that true national stage to get to that next level. And, hopefully some of these guys will throw Giancarlo Stanton in there. Some of the best young players in the game, if they want to be true superstars nationally, they need that national stage of the World Series.
All right, Tom, let's get down to business. Trade deadline day, and the pitchers are always a hot commodity. Got Verlander, Yu Darvish, Sonny Gray all on the block. Who's going to get moved, and what team are they going to be dealt to, in your opinion?
Yeah, to me, I'm a little bit dubious that Verlander will get traded. He's certainly out there, but the Tigers are in a position where they don't have to move him. I think the other two guys you mentioned, Gray and Darvish, will be traded. A lot more motivation on their team's part to move them. Sonny Gray looks like the Yankees are all in on Sonny Gray. They're waiting to see, the Yankees are waiting to see if the price changes because the A's, this is going to go down to the last hour probably, because the A's are trying to rope in some other teams that want to get Yankees top prospects. The Yankees have taken some guys off the board like Clint Frazier, Gleyber Torres, which they should. But I think they wind up with Sonny Gray with a package of their next-tier prospects. And Darvish, to me, I think he's a great fit for the Dodgers. Now, from what I'm hearing, the Cleveland Indians are trying to sneak in here. He does have a no-trade to Cleveland, so they have to work that out for that deal to happen. But I am assuming that both of those guys, and hey, it could come down to the last hour of the trade deadline here, Darvish and Gray will be traded and certainly will impact the race, if not the postseason, because I think both those guys are impact pitchers who could impact who wins the World Series.
We're talking with Tom Verducci. He'll be part of MLB Network's trade deadline coverage beginning at 10 a.m. today. And Tom's new book, The Cubs Way, is available in stores everywhere. I want to stay there in Los Angeles with the Clayton Kershaw situation. Not super trade related, but what do you think about how L.A. is dealing with that? I mean, this is the second year in a row they've had a sort of, I don't want to say major, but a large chunk of the season taken away from him. Looking forward and how you deal him or what you do with him, where do you think the Dodgers stand in terms of the Kershaw situation?
Good question. Listen, Clayton turned 30 years old next year. I think he's one of the hardest working guys in baseball. And I do think there comes a point, right around when you turn 30, where there's a little bit of a diminishing return in how hard you work. In other words, the body can wear down a little bit more. You're trying to build it up, and you can actually start wearing it down. So for a guy, as you said now, 2 straight years, they've had to back off him with a back issue. This is another one. It's going to be at least 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. Now, they don't think it's related to last year, but even so, the biggest predictor of future injuries are past injuries. Now you've got 2 years in a row, a pattern here. This may affect their usage of him, may affect how he trains between starts, off seasons, all those things come into play. But right now, I mean, listen, you guys know it's the lead that they have. This is all about, taking it easy on Kershaw. I would be very conservative when I bring him back, how many innings he throws. It's all about how does he feel, not September 1, but October 1.
Tom, do the Dodgers need to make a move because of the Kershaw injury, or are they making a move or thinking of making a move from a pitching standpoint just to bolster their starting rotation?
I think both ways. I think it is coverage if Kershaw, say he's back and he's not the same dominant pitcher. But even if he is, to me, they need a number 2 guy to run shotgun with him. And I know Alex Wood has pitched really well this year, but, listen, Darvish is a guy you can give the ball to, and he's going to take the ball deep into a game. And I know they have a great bullpen, but I do think, and I know the Dodgers' MO has been, we'll beat you with absolute depth, right? They can throw a ton of strikeout pitchers at you coming out of the bullpen. But you saw it last year in the postseason against the Cubs. I mean, they do need some length out of their starting pitchers in the postseason. And I think for a team that's been like the 1984 Tigers, where they're just running the table this year in the regular season, I do think they need another starting pitcher. And there's nobody better on the market. I'll take Darvish over Gray any day of the week. He can be a difference maker.
Last thing we'll ask you, Tom, this is sort of a two-parter. Number one, what teams do you think stand to benefit the most from any deals today in terms of specifics of those that are going to be going to the postseason as you see it? And number two, is one of those teams my Washington Nationals, who I need to make a relatively deep run this fall?
Yeah, man, you need another arm in that bullpen. I know you got a couple of weeks ago in Madison and Doolittle, but I'm still not convinced that bullpen's good enough to take out the Dodgers. I actually think right now, and we'll see what happens today, guys, but I love what the Cubs have done because they got Jose Quintana, and the rotation definitely needed help. And now they've added Justin Wilson last night, the left-handed pitcher. Listen, to me, you're in the National League. You have to figure out how to beat the Dodgers. And you better have a ton of left-handed pitching to go up against the Dodgers. And they've added that now. They've got Lester and Quintana as starters. They got Wilson, Bensing, they have Montgomery in the bullpen. I like what they've done in terms of matching up because you do have to go through L.A. So to me right now, I'd say the Cubs are ahead of the pack. I also want to see, guys, what the Houston Astros do today. Lately their starting pitching has been leaking oil a little bit. Lance McCullers has had a bad month in July. They should get into at least the Sonny Gray game. If not, Darvish might be tough to deal with Texas. But I think the clock is on the Houston Astros to come up with a starting pitcher today.
Tom, I'm curious, and we'll get you out here on this. My co-host today, Clinton Yates, informed me that as a baseball fan, he goes to baseball games and scores the game from his seat. Now, he's not a media member.
I am a media member, but not when I'm working.
Right,
games.
at the game. That's what I'm saying. You're not a media member at the game. So, Tom, I'm curious. Do baseball fans everywhere score the game like my co-host Clinton? Because my mind is blown. Like, I've never heard of this.
I'm impressed, man, that your co-host is – he's cool in my book, man. You get your
Thank you, Tom. Super fist bump in the studio.
I did that as a kid, and I'll tell you what, it's the one thing you can do. We can not just follow the game, but you can take home kind of like your own personal souvenir, right? And everybody's got their own way of keeping score. It's like handwriting or fingerprints. So, yeah, I'm totally down with keeping score during games. Not enough people do it these days, so good on you. I love that.
He's Tom Verducci. He's an MLB Network insider. He'll be part of the MLB Network's trade deadline coverage beginning today at 10 a.m. in his new book, The Cubs Way, is available in stores everywhere. Thank you, Tom.
Happy trade deadline day, guys. Thanks.
Absolutely. See?
You're
See?
But
see?
You know what? This is
you ain't know.
This
don't mean
this
that
is
other
a
people don't
huge
do
survey,
it.
though, because I keep asking baseball people.
Yes.
And they keep agreeing with you.
It's a baseball people thing.
We need to ask fans.
Hashtag kids dig the scorecard. We've been over this.
I thought it was a long ball, but
I'm just saying.
well.
Yeah, that's the whole point, Booger. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to get people back into the game via a modified tagline.
Okay.
Got my bit.
I hear you.
Doing my best. By the way, have you heard that band in the background? Because First Takes Back.
Yeah.
They're called the Funky Dogs. They're made up of current and former UConn students. So if you heard any bass drums or anything like that, that's what that was.
They got a band?
Apparently.
They've been off for 5 weeks, and they get a band when they come back.
Don't ask me, man.
Interesting.
We get coffee and, eggs and scorecards.
I haven't seen coffee yet this morning, but okay.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Mike and Mike, ESPN2, ESPN Radio, Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland filling in here on a Monday. Reminding you, if you missed any of the show, including Bomani Jones in Hour 3, you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app. And you can subscribe to our Best of podcast. It's all available on the Listen tab of the ESPN app. We've covered quite a few things today, Booger. Mm-hmm. Baseball Hall of Fame. Talked about LeVar Ball. Talked about Colin Kaepernick. But one of the people I wanted to take a little time to remember and discuss a little bit more is Claire Smith.
Mm-hmm.
She was given an award in Cooperstown for sports writing. She was the first black woman to cover a baseball beat for Major League Baseball. She was the first one that sort of championed for women in the locker room.
Mm-hmm.
And in a nation in which black women's voices are silenced and not listened to enough, I just want to note her as a pioneer and a beacon in an industry in which it hasn't always been easy to break into. The J.G. Taylor Spink Award is the name of the award, and her speech was tremendous. Let's hear some words from what she had to say.
Like a pebble in a pond, the honor of being named the 2017 J.G. Taylor Spink Award winner sent out the most beautiful ripples, which are now washing up on the shores of Lake Otsego, and they magically carried my family and me to the most memorable moment of my career.
Booger, we make a lot of stories into bigger stories. 30 for 30, I'm talking to you. Would love to see a bigger story about Claire Smith and her life and her legacy to the game.
Well, there's no doubt about it. And any time you have someone who's a pioneer, someone who opens doors for other women, if you think about as a football player, as a fan, when you watch locker rooms and you see women in locker rooms, you can thank Claire Smith.
Yeah.
So you can thank for her.
And now people forget that this wasn't, back when you were a kid, you didn't see this. Yeah. This was not normal necessarily, not when you were a kid, but I mean, like in earlier generations.
I know, I'm only 3 years older than you. You make me sound like I'm 55. Hey, back in the day when you were coming up, I'm 3 years older than you. Okay, that's it, just 3, not 15, just 3.
We got through this show, and I was trying my best not to make a huge error, and that was the one that embarrassed me the most. My phone going off wasn't that embarrassing.
Yeah,
but
twice.
That was.
I'm just saying it went off twice.
It was twice.
Yeah, okay,
that's right, 2 times. But what I'm saying is that there was an era in which women in the locker room, never mind on the sideline or anywhere else, just wasn't a thing. But as somebody that's been in a lot of locker rooms, you know something about that in terms of why it's important from a professional standpoint to be able to have.
Well, it's important because there's so many women that cover this game and do a great job of it. Mary Kay Cabot up in Cleveland. Phenomenal job. I don't like Josina Anderson. If you think about a lot of the people that cover this game, some of the most introspective and thoughtful people are women. Now imagine them trying to do their job without being able to go in the locker room and have access to the players and getting that raw emotion right after the game. And yeah, it's different. It is different as a guy who's been in the locker room and walked around naked with no clothes on to have women in there. It's uncomfortable for them. It's uncomfortable for us. But I just think back to how they would do their job if they did not have access to that and how far we've come. And it can all go back to Claire Smith because of what she did, championing women's rights to be able to go in the locker room and do their job because women can cover football just as well as men.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So don't jump in my mentions with all your foolishness about how if you didn't play the game, you can't understand the game because that's wrong. All right? That's why people like Claire Smith are important in not just our society, but in this business. As far as teaching people what you can do to become a better person at your job and as who you are as an individual. She wrote for the New York Times. She wrote for the Philadelphia Inquirer. She works here now at ESPN as part of our broadcast and our research team for baseball. It's so easy to forget that it wasn't that long ago that you weren't going to see two brothers like us up here hosting this show on TV. You weren't going to see a woman on a sideline or hosting a show.
Or in a locker room.
Or doing play-by-play or in the locker room.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we are allowed to do the things we're allowed to do. And Claire Smith is one of those journalists who broke down barriers and moved mountains effectively and opened doors for us to be able to do this now.
Yeah, I just challenge everybody to go back and look and pay homage to your forefathers and the people that allow you to do what you're doing today.
Up next, Dan Le Batard Show with Stu Gatz on the radio and SportsCenter on ESPN2, Clinton Yates, Booger McFarland, Mike and Mike.
Daddy, where do babies come from?
Honey?
Mommy went to the store.
Oh, well, you see, there's a mommy and a daddy, right?
Right.
And see, when they call Geico, they could save a bunch of money on car insurance.
Oh, really? And that makes them happy?
Yes, that makes them very happy.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we could have this talk, Sunshine.
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.